Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. During Tales of Aria spoiler season, I was pretty blunt that I wasn't sold on how well the new fusion mechanic would work in constructed play, being rather card intensive. Now that we have a few weeks of constructed under our belts, I wanted to revisit that discussion. Was I right? Was I wrong? For certain, we've started to see several elemental-based decks starting to emerge onto the scene. Lightning Lexi, Ice Lexi, Lightning Briar, Oldhim Hybrid, etc. But are these just people trying the new stuff, or do they have long-term legs? Or rather, and what I think is probably the case, is it simply that the new heroes have bigger toolboxes than their non-elemental counterparts? Now, speaking in absolutes is always wrong. See what I did there? But because fusion is indeed card-intensive, a high payoff for a high setup, even for players like myself who enjoy and/or really kind of rely on consistency, there are still several fusion lines of play that can provide relative consistency and remain relatively efficient. So today we're revisiting the fusion mechanic in Flesh and Blood and talking good fusion, bad fusion. Hello everyone, welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. I'm Andrew with you here as always. Thanks very much for tuning in with me midweek, or at least it is for me when I'm shooting this, which means I'm a couple days away from my weekend Flesh and Blood tourney gone guy. And I've been working on something a little out of my wheelhouse. Going to try Runeblade this weekend. Been working on a Lightning Briar build. So I know a lot of us have been trying the new fusion mechanic. I mean, why not? It's new, trying it out. So that's what I wanted to talk today, because that's kind of where my head is, and it's become pretty clear to me that, actually let's preface this with kind of a generic statement that I think fusion as a mechanic has where you stand on it personally, I think has a lot to do with your preferred playstyle. Me being a consistency player, I'd rather get the same thing every turn. Fusion has been a little hard for me to kind of go all in on. If you're a player who likes the big setup turns, then you probably love it, because it certainly can be high payoff when you can make it work. So as far as where things are for all of us looking at fusion, it's pretty clear that some fusion stuff is way too hard to pull off, and other fusion stuff is basically just like playing not normal Flesh and Blood, but pretty darn close, right? So Just a reminder of why in general we're talking about fusing being so card intensive is if you have a card like the one I'm putting up now, Rites of Lightning, but any card that costs, like this would go for like a lot of Lexi's ice arrows specifically, like Chilling Ice Vein, or all of her 1/5 arrows, at least on the red pitch. But you look at something like Rites of Lightning and it costs plus if you want to fuse it, that means that you at a minimum have 3 cards requirement, right? So like that's your minimum. Now, if you are doing something like Briar, where you want to non-attack into Rites of Lightning, that's a 4-card hand, right? Or not necessarily 4-card hand, but it's a 4-card combo. So then you'd have to have something in Arsenal, and then you start to be like, well, how am I doing this every turn, right? And like this, I guess we just don't block, right? So that was kind of the generic statement going in that myself and many others were questioning how reliable fusion was going to be as a mechanic. And what we've seen is that, there are some, let's talk about these, right? These are the really tough fusions, or what I'm calling them. These are your double fusions, right? Like Lexi's Ice Storm, Ice and Lightning. Blossoming Spellblade, which of course I got 2 of in my pre-release, so that was, I was never gonna. I got a normal one and a foil one, which is awesome, but it's basically unplayable, right? So, especially in limited, when you're just not going to set up the combo. And then you have Ulk and Old, which in of itself is a fine card, actually. The 3 for 7's fine, but fusing both Earth and Fusion, I mean, for for Guardian, right, that's a blue drop to pitch. That's one of each, plus this. That's not how Guardian generally likes to play. On the flip side, these hit big, right? They're major pieces in trying to pull off something crazy. Actually, I personally don't think Ice Storm's it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but I personally don't think the upside's there for Ice Storm. The other two, I think it probably is. But I'm sure there's somebody out there who's been able to pull off Ice Storm and gone combo wombo on me. So let me know, let me know what you've been able to pull off with Ice Storm if you have. But regardless of where you stand on whether these are worth the payoff or not, we can all agree that there's a ton of setup, and there should be, right, for such a high payoff. But these cards are very, very difficult to do. Now, you do have the pulses, right, where they're great fusion options because they can satisfy both requirements, right? So, for example, the Lightning Ice one, if you were to, fuse Pulse of Volthaven with the Ice Storm, you would only need that card, right, because it's both, which is great. So these are amazing fusion options, and let's go out and grab them. The problem is they're legendary, right? There's only one of each of these in your deck. So that's pretty rough timing if you're trying to pull off like your crucial catch, because remember, you can't store it in your arsenal. You can't fuse from arsenal. It has to be fused from your hand, which means that you have to draw into it. So either you've pitched and done some setup, or you've done other energy to put it where it needs to go, or maybe you just got lucky. But it's, relying on getting, my point here is relying on getting these cards in of themselves is really not a win con, right? And then I wanted to add one more thing. I've kind of got it noted there on Pulse of Isenloft. Since it's a defense reaction, generally when you pull defense reactions, you want to play them on your opponent's turn after you just drew it. So in order to fuse Pulse of Isenloft, you'd have to let it sit in your hand a whole round. And again, you can't go in Arsenal. So that's kind of a bummer, right? So, but fundamentally, I don't think most of the time you're fusing with Pulse of Isenloft. But I guess if you draw the nuts, you draw the nuts, right? But all right, so that said, those are the big challenges, which kind of, we've highlighted the card intensivity, and we've highlighted, the big ones that, let's be honest, probably aren't going to see a lot of play, which is unfortunate because they're big specs, but I don't think they're going to see much play in the grand scheme of things, right? But they'll fill up those binder slots very nicely. Now, there are a lot of fusion cards out there, not a lot, but there are a class of fusion cards out there that I do like. And these are what I call the free fusion cards. And what I mean by this is, like, let's take Entwined Lightning. Actually, this was on one of my top 10 lists, actually going in. And the point is, if what you're fusing, the overall arcing statement here is, if what you're fusing is what you were going to have in your hand and play anyway, then it's really free, right? It's free fusion. So Entwined Lightning, for example, if it was fused, it gains Go Again, right? If you fuse it with a lightning card. Well, if you were going to, think about it, right? Entwined Lightning, 0 for 4, with Go Again, your intent is to play another card after that. So if you fuse it with the card that you were going to play anyway, the net cost to you, the effective cost to you is nothing, right? Because it was going to be a card that you went again into, right? Played afterwards. Bramble Spark's another good example. Actually, Bramble Spark's a great example with Lexi. If you're going with Briar, if you're going with the, like an Earth thing, the Earth angle with Briar, and right, because this whole card, it's a non-attack. The whole point of this card is to pump the card after it. So if the card you're pumping after it is Earth, it's free, right? Because you're never going to play Bramble Spark, right? You would, under normal circumstances, you would never play a Flicker Wisp or a Bramble Spark as its own card, right? Because it doesn't do any, well, I guess Flicker Wisp does the one Arcane, but you see what I'm saying here, right? The point of these cards is to set up the next card, and if said next card is what satisfies the condition, then it's a free win for you, right? So this is really where these type of cards is really where the majority of my work and focus has been on in terms of the fusing type stuff. Now, sure, there's Arcanic Shockwave and Rites of Lightning even are in the deck that I've been working on, but they're not the key pieces as much as just trying to take advantage of efficiency, right? Low cost, low efficiency. The Lexi deck I played last week, Entwined Lightning, fit right into that, right? Had a whole bunch of Ball Lightnings, which are a great attack in of itself, right? Like, again, even if you had no intention of fusing throughout your entire game, your deck plan had no plan of fusing, there's a lot of cards out there there are a lot of decks out there that would still consider playing Ball Lightning, right? So Ball Lightning would be effectively, in this case, a free fuse. Now, Ball Lightning's a little less effective in the Entwined Lightning situation, right? Because ideally you'd want to play Ball Lightning before Entwined Lightning to put on the extra ping pressure. But you guys understand what I'm saying, right? And that there are optional cards out there that you would play anyway. And, two of them are what I would call decent fusion. Lightning Press, for example, is really, really good, especially as a fuse card because, again, you were kind of going to play it anyway, right? With Biting Gale, it's kind of the same type of situation where, sure, maybe you're not necessarily setting your hand up to fuse, but remember, you would be playing this after you drew up on your opponent's turn, so there's an excellent chance that you do have that in your hand already, and you wouldn't have to set it up. It doesn't permanently cost you anything. It's just kind of a bonus of this. Now, would you normally pay 2 for 4? I think not. So still, you're kind of dependent on a draw here. But my point here is that there's for both of these cards, I mean, more so Lightning Press than Biting Gale, to be honest. But there's minimal penalty to having that card in your hand because you were probably going to do it anyway. Especially in the case of Lightning Press, you're going to come over the top with it, right? So you're fusing to Lightning Press. Unfortunately, they know you have it if you're going to fuse and get that bonus out of it. But again, it's a minimal penalty in that case. I certainly don't like the fact that they would know that's definitely a huge drawback to having to fuse with that, for sure. But again, it's something in your hand that you can get the extra bonus out of and then come over the top. And with Biting Gale, as long as you're building your deck decently, we could sit and probably do the stats on that. Well, it would depend on what point in the game, but there's a decent chance that when you draw up, you're going to have one ice card with which to fuse for Biting Gale. So that's pretty much the rundown of where I stand on fusion as it is, right? Is I think the way to play fusion, at least until we get a larger card pool, is to really be focusing in on the free fusions, right? How can I fuse with minimal penalty to what my game plan would have been if I'd never heard of fusion altogether, right? So I like the Ball Lightnings. I like the front pump cards that go into something you were going to do anyway, right? And as far as, kind of the statement I made in the intro of how do we evaluate these new heroes with what we know about fusion? I think they're still really strong because, overall, I think the new heroes are still very strong because I'm wondering if the angle on all of these heroes isn't to not think of them as elemental heroes, but instead think of them as their original class that just has access to more stuff. And I'm wondering if that's not where most of these guys and gals are going to end up in the long run. But we will have to see as the greater minds develop and as we move closer to Worlds. And congrats to everyone who got their invites via the wins or via your XP. So good job. And U.S. National, of course, is what I'm referring to. So anyway, that'll do it for today. I already talked about Gongai, but again, folks, throwing up the schedule right now. Come out and join us if you're in the area, or even if you're not and you want to drive down. We've had people come in from Washington, nobody from California yet, to my knowledge, but it'd be great to come see you guys. And again, as you're getting those decks built, singles prices are really affordable for players right now, which is pretty awesome. So if you are in the business, make sure to go check out my buddy at FaB Foundry. Use the code below or use the link below to go over there, and you give a small kickback for the channel when you check out. And that's always much appreciated to help me get my singles. Still looking for my Seek and Destroy. So, folks, thanks very much for tuning in today. Let me know what you are thinking about fusion. Are you the combo wombo, hit me with something big, take it in the face in the meantime, or are you more like me and you like consistency? So anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in, and go Commando.